Would you pray with me? This Christmas day, O God, we ask that you would give us the grace to hear the songs of the angels, that we might follow a holy call, to come and see, and to go and tell. Amen. Welcome back, especially those of you who were here less than 12 hours ago as we celebrated Christmas Eve together. Last night, as we told the story of Christ's birth, we celebrated Christmas with communion and candlelight, with Luke's story of the angels announcing to a ragged crew of shepherds ranged along the Judean hillside the good news that a son of David was born in Bethlehem. We read Matthew's story of the wise ones who came to see Jesus, bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. This morning, though, even while we sing songs that contain within them these same stories of Jesus' birth, we come to the gospel, the good news, as shared in John's book. And John tells us neither of kings nor of pastoralists. We find no manger where the Word was made flesh and dwelt among us, but we experience the creative Word that was present at the Big Bang, when the whole of the cosmos, its spiral-armed galaxies and shining nebulae, its stars and planets flashed into being. Instead of a cute baby, smelling of breast milk and sweet straw, we encounter the awesome power of God in all of its terrifying strangeness. And if we're honest with ourselves, we're not really sure we like it. Give us the baby, we want to say to John. Don't burden us with all of this heavy theology. Don't make us come face to face with the power that brought us into being. But you know, John is a lot like our mothers. I expect we all have the same experience with our mothers, those people who never let us just eat chocolate cake for dinner, who insisted that we try at least 2 bites of everything that was on our plate, and who made sure that we ate our vegetables. That's what John is like. He doesn't want us to get too comfortable with the sweet story of the baby in the manger. And instead, he pushes us right out into the harsh reality that Jesus came into a world that didn't recognize him, that rejected him, that even crucified him. John doesn't let us indulge in sentimentality, but he pushes us on to our one true task, the task of becoming children of God, of living in this world with a spark of the divine within our own lives. John gives us a different and much needed perspective. I remember one Christmas a good many years ago. I was a young teen, maybe 14, 13, somewhere in that neighborhood. And as my family was sitting there unwrapping Christmas presents, I opened a package that contained a coffee mug. This mug right here. Now, my mother knew very well that I am a person who loves the ocean. And so if you look here, you'll see that there's seagulls and a lighthouse and the waves crashing against a cliff face. It's really a very nice mug. And I looked at the mug and I thanked my parents for it, and I set it down and went on to the next package to see what that might be. And a little later, my mother asked, "Paul, didn't you like that mug?" And I responded, "Well, you know, it's a fine mug. Thank you. You know, I'm sure I will look forward to having coffee and tea and cocoa and drinking it out of it." And she said, "You know, I thought that you'd really like that mug, because it's got a seascape on it." And I looked at my mother and said, "Well, thank you, it's a lovely mug, but there's no seascape on the mug. And of course, my mother, being the wise woman that she is, said to me, "Paul, there's a seascape on it. That's why I bought it for you." And I picked up the mug and I showed it to her. There's no seascape on this mug if you're left-handed. If you're right-handed, there's a lovely seascape. But as a southpaw, I'd seen a blue mug. It's nice enough, it'll hold your drinks, but there's nothing to sing if you're left-handed with this mug. Our lives are like that a lot, aren't they? Our perspective makes a huge difference, not only in what we see, but on what gifts we receive. It makes a difference in how we thank people, even, in how we live together. And on that Christmas morning, with my limited southpaw perspective, I couldn't give thanks appropriately because I hadn't received the gift that had been given. That's our call as Christians, is to find a perspective where we can receive what God truly gives us. And sometimes that's difficult. Today is my last time to address you from this pulpit as your pastor. And over the last few weeks, I've been very careful to remind you at every turn that God is with you, that God will be with you through the days, months, and years to come. Today, though, with a message of Christmas fresh in our ears, and the reality of our parting so close, I have a few other words for you. And if you want to pull out a notepad to jot these down, you can. First off, as you move forward as God's people, don't get too comfortable with worship. If you are entirely comfortable, it means that worship has become entertainment rather than an up-close and personal encounter with the Creator of the universe. Instead, let worship take you to your growing edges. Pay attention to what goes on in other churches and in the wider church. Read books and attend conferences. Sing new hymns. Try different things. Change things up. Try not to complain. Stretch yourselves. That way, you will grow in faith, and the church will grow in numbers. Don't look backwards at your past too much. While this church has a long and rich history, I can assure you that newcomers to this congregation are much more interested in where you're going than in where you've been. Looking backwards, insisting on doing things the ways that you did them years and decades ago, spending your time talking about what this old pastor or that old pastor, even if that old pastor happens to be me, tells new people that their presence and their gifts are not valued. Instead, look to the future and invite everyone, both veteran member as well as people who have just come through these doors, to be part of building the church's future. Speaking of these doors, don't think for a moment that a sign that says, "These doors are open to you," means anything at all to people who have spent their lives being told that God hates them. If you, as a church, really believe that these doors are open to everyone, then become an open and affirming congregation. Don't tap dance around the words. Tell people straight out, these doors are open to you, no matter your age or your race, no matter your gender identity or sexual orientation, no matter your national origin or native language or immigration status, no matter your marital status or religious background, no matter your income level, no matter your physical abilities or disabilities, no matter who you are and where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. Don't be shy about it. Don't let the naysayers scare you. If you really believe that these doors are open to everyone, then for God's sake, say it. Say it loudly. Say it publicly. Say it proudly. Say it often. Put it in the newspaper. Put it on posters. Make it a central truth of your life together. And if you don't believe it, well, that's a different conversation. Turn your focus outward, and the inward life of this church will take care of itself. When you focus inward, you lose sight of the holy call that God has given you. Turn outward. Trust God. Don't let this church's commitment to social justice be just a thing of the past. While it's easy to rest on the accomplishments of past leaders from decades ago, the world is still very much in desperate need of justice. Racial justice is important, but so are economic justice, access to affordable, quality health care, religious discrimination, homophobia, and sexism. Stay vigilant. Look for injustice, and wherever you find it, speak up. Take steps to remedy the problem. You're getting ready to enter an interim period, and I would encourage you all to commit yourself to that process, to be part of all of the conversations that take place in this church as you move forward. Don't let someone else make decisions on your behalf. Be part of the congregation. Listen in love. Speak in love. Study together. Study the Bible and take it seriously. Take time to actually read it, to understand what it says and what it doesn't say. Study modern theologians and expect your leaders to do it too. After all, if you had a health problem, you'd read the current articles on your condition, not things that were 80 years out of date. Why should your spiritual health be less important to you than your physical health? Remember to have fun together. Building a congregation takes work, but it also takes play. It takes those times sitting around tables sharing stories. It takes the sheer silliness of having get-acquainted games that you play with people that you've maybe known, kind of, sort of, for decades. Have fun together. Build the family. Keep looking at things from new perspectives. Take that coffee mug that you think you know what it looks like and look at it from the other side. All of you. This is a congregation that has been in conflict for years. And sometimes stopping and paying attention to someone who disagrees with you, who has a different perspective, can open you up to growth as well. The other side of the mug can show you quite a lot. I'd like to close with a bit of poetry today, a gift. I was reminded of this as I spoke with a friend the other day. It's one of the great Christmas poems of the English language by T.S. Eliot, The Journey of the Magi. A cold time we had of it, just the worst time of year for a journey, and such a long journey. The ways deep and the weather sharp, the very dead of winter. And the camels galled, sore-footed, refractory, lying down in the melting snow. There were times we regretted leaving the summer palaces on slopes, the terraces, and the silken girls bringing sherbet. Then the men, the camel men, cursing, grumbling, and running away, wanting their liquor and women. And the night fires going out, and the lack of shelters, and the cities dirty, the towns unfriendly, the villages dirty, and charging high prices. A time we had of it. At the end, we preferred to travel all night, sleeping in snatches, with the voices singing in our ears, saying that all of this was folly. Then, at dawn, we came down to a temperate valley, wet below the snow line, smelling of vegetation, with a running stream and a watermill beating the darkness, and 3 trees on the low sky. And an old white horse galloped away in the meadow. Then we came to a tavern with vine leaves over the lintel, 6 hands at an open door dicing for pieces of silver, and feet kicking away the empty wineskins. But there was no information, and so we continued, and arrived at evening, not a moment too soon, finding the place. It was, you may say, satisfactory. All this was a long time ago. I remember, and I would do it again. But set this down. This. We were led all that way. Was it for birth or death? There was a birth, certainly. We had evidence and no doubt. I had seen birth and death, but had thought that they were different. This birth was hard and bitter agony for us, like death, our death. We returned to our places, these kingdoms, but no longer at ease here in the old dispensation, with an alien people clutching their gods. I should be glad of another death. Birth and death, endings and beginnings, opening the presents, seeing what you've been given, finding new perspectives, new vistas, new promises, and new hopes. People of God, today we celebrate birth and death. We celebrate the God who came to dwell among us and the God who died for us. We celebrate steps in our journey. We celebrate Christmas. We celebrate the divine story and even ours. May you then be blessed in this season of new life and new birth. Amen.